It's crazy the leftists, even outside the imperial core, still have infighting and splitting. How is that always so difficult? What are the major disagreements that these groups have that split them? Are they actually being sabotaged by liberals? No. As much as I would like to say it's the fucking liberals or it's the reactionaries that infiltrate these movements, and there are some instances where they do that, this has been an endless problem on the left. If you ever look to the history of successful socialist revolutions and unsuccessful revolutionary movements, reformist, revisionist movements, it just always is. It always has existed. There is a reason why every single important Marxist, socialist thinker, even during a successful revolution, has spent endless amounts of time constantly criticizing other delineations and other tendencies amongst the left. There has never been a moment where successful law, yes, I would say the USSR was the aftermath of a successful revolution. If you can design a state, then your revolution was successful. You might not agree with like how the state is managed after that. Okay. I think a lot of the infighting also stems from how overwhelming the forces of capital are. It makes it virtually impossible to design any sort of discipline in any sort of movement, especially because a lot of people have very different versions of what it means to be authoritarian and what it means to be a democratically organized movement. And those differences become fairly consequential in the grand scheme of things. And no one turns around and goes, okay, we've actually achieved this success. We've actually destroyed Tsarist Russia. Now it's time for us to unify. It never works that way. It happens at every point. The American left, which is virtually non-existent, okay, is a great example of this. Even when we got no class consciousness as a country, even when we have no real robust left movement in the country, people are still fucking constantly eating each other alive, talking about how different it is. Chatter's wrong. There are liberation groups who aren't even infighting and formed a united front. Not exactly socialist Marxists. PFLP and DFLP are the only ones who had a split along ideological lines. Hamas and PIJ were created on their own terms, not socialists, but still liberationists. Yes, I know. This is true. And ultimately, they still had a singular focus in fighting back against the Israeli occupation. So they could unite in their militancy, in their efforts of militancy, because of how oppressive Israel has been. So historically, and even in contemporary society, the only time where a dominated population ever actually gets together and casts aside whatever differences in opinion that they have is when they're singularly focused on an emancipatory struggle, when they're singularly focused on overcoming a fascist movement or overcoming an ethno-nationalist apartheid project such as Israel, or overcoming the utter domination of Tsarist Russia. Those are the only instances where people actually successfully get together and fight back. So much so that I can point to you the endless civil war that existed between Maoists and the nationalists in China. They also dropped their infighting to do a little collab special in an effort to fight against the Japanese genocide that was taking place. They literally did that. They were like, all right, we got to do a little bit of a collab here. Okay? W collab.